Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. You like it? 3, 1, 2, 3. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Let's go. Let's get it. Gentlemen, welcome in. Purple Daily. Daily Vikings entertainment. I love when Judd sings on the show.
I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited. I love this time of year. I will always, it gets better by the day. Reports starting to come out. It's just the start. It's like opening day of chaos.
Dude, it is. Yeah, we should have like a countdown clock with minutes and seconds to the NFL free agency period. We're still 3 weeks away from the league opening up and actual chaos happening. But in a week from today, Kwesi and KOC will address the media at the Combine. Combine week is where the entire NFL world infiltrates downtown Indianapolis, get some old fashions and an agent and a GM, and they start
Yelling.
Now, let's hypothetically, I know we can't tamper, but between you, me, and the fence post.
Yeah, since I'm talking.
What does Kirk want to make next year?
Since I'm talking to you about one of your clients that I want to re-sign, let me ask you about that client that plays for the Lions.
Yeah, if you, in theory, had another client that, was interested in exploring the market. So we'll get to the latest on Kirk Cousins here, a couple interesting things, and then some questions off of the latest on Kirk Cousins. But a shout out to our friends, Judd, at Livia, helping you get in great shape here to start 2024.
Yep, exactly. Speaking of the Combine, of course, that's a place where players are tested. And you ask, how do they get in shape? I'm not sure how they get in shape, but I know how you can get in shape. Same way Sports Day I did, lost 40 pounds a couple of years ago. Livia Weight Control Centers is going to help you do that. Tip-top shape. And here's the best part, too. The offer on the table right now is first 3 months for free. So imagine that. We're to springtime. We're getting towards summer. You're feeling great. You're looking great. Perhaps there's a lot of clothes right now that you don't even want to try on because you're like, they're not going to fit. Well, guess what? With the program at Livia Weight Control Centers, those clothes are going to fit. And again, 3 months for free. 855-GO LIVEA, Livia.com, LIVEA.com. Program can be done virtually too. So if you're a Purple Daily viewer or listener, I don't know, let's say in Florida, guess what? Livia can work for you. Just visit Livia.com. That's how you get started.
And thank you guys for the warm reception to our draft party announcement yesterday. More details about tickets. And so admission's going to be free, but you will need a ticket. And we will have information about that hopefully in the next week and a half or so. But yeah, mark your calendars. Thursday, April 25th, first round of the draft, the third annual Purple Daily Draft Party at the Fillmore in Minneapolis. We're excited to take this thing to a new level here, boys. So let's start with the latest on Kirk Cousins. From Albert Breer, Sports Illustrated. I feel like Sports Illustrated has gotten rid of like a lot of credible people, but Albert Breer does remain a beacon of football coverage. So
and I think
they've got him on staff.
I think Monday Morning Quarterback might be an offshoot somehow too.
Yeah.
Like it's some type of, because Peter King started it.
So yeah, Sports Illustrated owns the intellectual property to Monday Morning Quarterback. So Peter King left and they kept the name of the old article series.
Right.
And so Albert Breer now just like sat in the Monday Morning Quarterback vehicle and he's driving it. Yeah.
Speeding all over.
So here's what he writes.
Yeah.
The current Minnesota brass really likes Cousins, but it's also been made clear that they're not going to go contractually where the previous regime did twice and give Cousins a fully guaranteed deal. The success Cousins had in the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan offense would ostensibly, it's a great word, ostensibly.
It's a great word. Fantastic. Love it.
Make him an attractive candidate to join new offensive coordinators in Las Vegas, Luke Getsy, or Atlanta, Zach Robinson. So he's got this McVay, Shanahan offensive KOC DNA. Las Vegas has some of that. Atlanta's going to have some of that.
Yep.
They have strong ties to the Shanahan coaching family. For what it's worth, the Vikings did touch base with Cousins' camp last week as they got their pre-combine meetings going. So the lines of communication are still open. More clarity could come in Indianapolis next week. What do you make of the fully guaranteed thing that apparently right now, and this doesn't, I'm glad that somebody credible is confirming this. This is what we suspected, that the Vikings want flexibility. The Vikings would say, hey, we'd love you. You're kind of a bridge quarterback for us now. Age, injury, we're in position to maybe draft a quarterback, so we'd love for you to come back for a year, and then we can kind of play it by ear after that. And the Cousins camp is firmly entrenched in, no, I've built up enough of a resume here. I want some security, and there's a market for me. So unless you want to guarantee 2 or 3 years, this is a conversation that's not going to go anywhere.
I'm not surprised, and I think that this probably dates back to last March when the Cousins camp clearly wanted to get the extension done back then, and the Vikings are like, yeah, we would too, but here's our terms. And the Cousins camp's like, okay, we'll pass. And I think the Cousins camp, I think Mike McCartney, Kirk's agent, actually presented some type of proposal for what they thought, and the Vikings said no, hard pass on that. And so I guess my question is, what's really changed? Now, if Kirk was coming off a great season, not a great, first 8 games, and then he got hurt, perhaps that would change this conversation. But he's going to be 36 in August. He tore his Achilles. And what actually might be a blessing in disguise if you're the Vikings and want to move on is the fact that if you look at the free agent list of quarterbacks, Kirk, even at his age, coming off the Achilles injury, is easily the best quarterback out there. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that this is setting up for probably a divorce, but it's fine. It works. Like, are the Vikings in a position? Kirk Cousins should take another run at 2018, shouldn't he? Kirk Cousins should take another run at, let me go to a team that we feel is on the precipice, and he has to know deep down in Kirk's heart that he is not like the final piece of like Patrick Mahomes is going to the Giants. He's Kirk Cousins. He's very good, but he needs to go to a team that is prepared to win now. Now, is that the Falcons? We can debate that. But the fact is, I think what Breer reported is very much another, if there is going to be a divorce and it's going to be documented in the lawyers, basically going through what led to that divorce, this is another piece. And as I sent you guys last night, the more you think about this, one of the teams that would at least make sense to be sniffing around, San Francisco. So,
wow. So, okay, you just dropped a little recklessly speculative bombshell there at the end of your. I'm just saying. The more do you think that's a real thing? I mean, we've been on this since 2019, basically. But
I think until it doesn't happen, considering Kyle Shanahan's affection for Kirk, I think it at least has to be considered. And that's the one team that I think is prepared. Like, I will say this. There is no team, in my opinion, Kirk can go to and win a Super Bowl with unless you plop him on the 49ers and everything does go right because they have the infrastructure.
So 2 things off that. One, Kyle Shanahan tried desperately to move off Jimmy Garoppolo the year that Garoppolo won them the Super Bowl, right? Or not won them the NFC and got them to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Like the whole conversation after that was, well, Jimmy's not good enough, even though he was good enough to get us to the Super Bowl and have a 10-point lead, I think, in the second half of the Super Bowl. We got to move on. So then they went into like Trey Lance mode. Okay, what can we do to get our actual quarterback of the future? So they bundle up a bunch of capital. They move up. They go get Trey Lance. And about a year later, they're like, not as impressive as we thought, not as athletic as we thought. Let's move on from him into Brock Purdy. What we don't know is how much they love Brock Purdy compared to where they were at with Garoppolo. But we do know that Kyle Shanahan is much more willing to move off adequate quarterback options, or I would say like sunk cost quarterback options. Like most teams would say, well, we put all this into Trey Lance. We got to at least try him for a full season. Not the 49ers, man. Like they are, you never really know what they're thinking. And they're so desperate at this point to keep this window open. They've got major cap issues. Those conversations behind the scenes with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are super interesting. Mm-hmm. They'd have to pull some cap magic to make that happen. You wouldn't just be plopping Kirk onto the same exact roster, I don't think. They'd have to make a couple tweaks. But the other thing you said is Kirk should chase his next opportunity to go 2018 Kirk. Kirk bet on himself in Washington. He didn't take a contract that he didn't feel comfortable with so that he could hit the open market and go sign with a team that'll pay him money and a team that's ready to win right now. And that was the Vikings in 2018. How many teams out there right now, besides San Francisco, are at the same level as the Vikings were in 2018? And are the Vikings in a position to do what they did in 2018? Like, are they a Kirk Cousins away from going deep in the playoffs, NFC Championship game, 12, 13 wins, being a Super Bowl contender?
No. The 2022 Vikings, O'Connell's first team that ran things back, was in a better position than this team currently. I mean, that was your chance with that incarnation, because you ran it back. You brought everybody back. You had some nice pieces, and you lost in the first round after winning 13 games. So no, I don't feel that this is the best chance. And the reality is this too. If you bring Kirk back on the contract Kirk wants, Daniil's gone. Hunter is almost certainly gone. And if he's gone, you're gonna, you could only ask Brian Flores to turn water into wine X amount of times. Like, imagine showing up at training camp next year, 99's gone, right? And you're like, B-Flow, let's do it again. B-Flow is going to tell you what you could do with yourself. And on a family show, sports dad can't say that.
When you look at the other teams, though, that are a quarterback away, like the Kirk Cousins away 2018 version of the Vikings, and we briefly talked about this probably like a month ago. Do the Miami Dolphins look at their quarterback situation and say, man, our roster is there, our coach is there, we are in a very competitive conference that has a uber deep class of quarterbacks. It's going to be hard to compete, but roster-wise, talent-wise, God, we are knocking on the door. We should be competing with the Chiefs, should be competing with the Ravens. I look at the Dolphins as one of those teams, but like just looking at Super Bowl, the best teams with the Super Bowl odds right now, which, by the way, the Niners do have the best odds to get to the Super Bowl next year after losing it to the Chiefs. They're plus 500 right now if you want to make a bet on that.
Interesting.
But the Chiefs have their quarterback situation figured out. The Ravens, the Bills, the Cowboys, the Lions. Maybe there's some murkiness there in the future.
They got to pay Goff. Yeah.
But they're going to probably pay him. The Bengals are fine. The Eagles are fine. The Dolphins are the one to me that of those 9-10 teams I just listed, the only one I can see, you know what, let's move off this quarterback, even though he's younger and cheaper, and let's get the established guy because we are a quarterback away from making a run.
Yeah, there's a couple teams like that, the Dolphins and the Niners, that on the surface you'd say, oh yeah, they have their young quarterback and they're doing fine. Now the Dolphins have to make a decision on paying Tua. The Niners don't have to make that decision on Brock Purdy for another 2 years. In fact, they can't even address his contract until at least next offseason or maybe the offseason after that. So they're in a decent spot. But man, the Niners thing, I didn't think we were going to talk about this today, but Judd floated it out there. It's perfect for Kirk because it's the coach that he's always wanted to work with. It's a more souped up version of the car that he's driving right now. He's got a more vast array of weapons. The offensive line's a little shaky in San Francisco once you get past Trent Williams, so they might have to make a tweak or two there. But that team is ready to rock and roll. Would they determine, even after Brock Purdy just led the NFL in 6 or 7 key quarterbacking categories, would they determine, despite that, this is our one shot to get Kirk Cousins where he belongs, which is a Kyle Shanahan system? Would they make a move like that?
The odds, the common sense odds say no, but as you pointed out, Phil, they've made some really ballsy, weird moves. Like the Trey Lance thing, no one does that.
Yeah.
Who else trades up to get the third pick, and literally before the guy gets a real chance, because he got hurt. You know what? He didn't lose that job 2 years ago. He was the starter and he got hurt, and they bailed on it. That's damn near unprecedented, I think, for a pick that high. And so if there's one wild card team, and the other way that you could potentially perceive this is, Brock Purdy was the last pick of the draft. So we all, of course, think Tom Brady's a 6th round pick. Brock Purdy's a 7th round pick. Mm-hmm. Is that how San Francisco thinks? Or do they think, yeah, he's really good and we appreciate what he's done, but one, he's not a sunk cost. There's no cost. He's you literally went to, the dime store and found this great product, But do you think that Kirk Cousins is a superior product? And so, like, I think San Francisco's opened the door to this conversation at least being viable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right now in terms of like the betting markets. So DraftKings has we did the bookies.com odds, but that was for entertainment purposes. I think DraftKings might actually have it open, but DraftKings latest odds have the Vikings, the Falcons, Raiders, Steelers, and Commanders. I think the Commanders are third. So it's like Vikings, Falcons, Commanders, Raiders, and Steelers on the list of teams he could go to. The Dolphins are not really, they'd be a sleeper sort of mystery team, and the Niners until something actually gets reported. So among those teams, if you put Kirk Cousins as quarterback of the Vikings again, of the Falcons, of the Steelers, of the Raiders, of the Commanders, which of those teams would be the best in 2024? Or give me like your top three in order.
Okay, I got to give this a second of thought.
So Vikings. So all of these teams we've cloned Kirk Cousins five times over. We got five Kirk Cousins. Okay.
So you get the Raiders, Steelers,
five
Falcons.
Kirko chains.
Okay.
It would sound something like this.
You like that? You like that? You like that?
Oh,
You like that?
too much Kirk. Too much Kirk. Okay, so you got the Falcons, the Vikings, the Raiders, the
Steelers, Raiders, and Commanders.
and Commanders.
I know the Commanders sounds crazy, but new ownership, new front
Nah, it's not
office,
as
new
crazy.
coaching
It's
staff.
not crazy. It's not crazy.
It's familiar territory.
And first of all, the reality is probably like the genuine thought process, in my opinion, is for Kirko to say, what gives me the best chance to win a Lombardi? Like, I want that Lombardi, right?
only after he gets a certain amount of money.
Well, exactly.
Right?
So you're probably, as you said with Dukes on our Tuesday scoop session, the reality is Mike McCartney and Kirk are probably playing their Super Bowl right now. So this is about, okay, where am I going to get the guarantees? Where am I going to get the pot?
Do you think confetti fall? Do you think there's a Gatorade bath in the Cousins household once they secure the bag again? Oh man, the Falcons just offered a third guaranteed year.
Do you remember
Purple Gatorade?
Do you remember that documentary when he worked the Jets to get the Vikings?
Yeah.
And
I don't high five in there somewhere.
I don't think I've ever
can't
seen
remember.
him so giddy. He's talking to Julie, and he's like, "We got what we want."
The confetti's coming down.
And his kids are high fiving him.
Jim Nance comes in to do the interview. And now, Kirk, congratulations on your 4th ironclad guaranteed contract. What must it feel like?
Hello, friends. So I think the Falcons are the best of these teams because the Falcons have weapons as well. And here's the other question, okay? Can Kirk function with a former Rams OC now? Can Kirk function in a screen game with Bijan Robinson, which will be fantastic if he can? Mm-hmm. Like the Vikings just don't have that.
I think Kirk Kirk is better at the screen game than maybe the results of the Vikings screens have. Yeah,
like with Stefanski, he's shown that.
Yeah.
So I think the Falcons are 1.
Steelers have George Pickens running down the field.
Yeah. The Steelers I'm not as high on, but
the Raiders have one of the best wide receivers in the league in Devontae Adams. They've got Max Crosby on defense. They were an 8-win team last year.
The Raiders might be 2, the Vikings 3, the Steelers 4, the Commanders 5. But I don't think that stops them from going to Washington because, again, like you said, new coaching staff completely, new owners. I don't think he disliked the area at all. I think they enjoyed it. And we know Kirk, I think Kirk likes being familiar with a place, which means Atlanta, Minnesota, and Washington are all places he's been now.
I have a completely different list, not even remotely the same of the 5 that Judd gave.
Declan's like number 1 Packers. No,
number 1 Packers. No, with those 5 teams, the Vikings are still the best team with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins' best fit is with this year's Vikings. You still have Justin Jefferson. You still have Jordan Addison. You have a coach you're familiar with. Your defense took the right path. The Vikings are still the best team with Kirk Cousins on this, for me. I really think so. The Steelers last year were a competent quarterback away from being really good. Kenny Pickett stunk. Mason Rudolph is a jag. Mike Tomlin kind of has one more last gasp in here to kind of make sure he can really solidify his legacy even more. And even though that division is stacked, if you put Kirk Cousins in it, the Steelers are in the conversation 100%. So I have the Steelers
Kenny Pickett,
second.
13 touchdowns in 2 years.
Yeah,
He's awful.
He's not good at football.
He is awful. I have the Falcons third. Falcons make sense. The personnel's there. The personnel's been like this hidden gem. Like, oh, they just haven't been unlocked yet because of buffoonery of head coaching. But also like, hey, maybe those guys also just aren't as good as people say they are either. Like, it's been 2-3 years. I know they haven't had a good quarterback. I get the enticedness there. You put Kirk Cousins there. Those guys probably get better stats and look a lot better than they are. But there's a reason, too, that they haven't really popped up. And I had the Commanders and Raiders fourth and fifth. I mean, the Raiders, I love what Antonio Pierce did there, but it's the Raiders. Like, I need to see sustained success with the Raiders to really believe in anything. And the Commanders, I get some of the lure there, but I would have the Vikings still as the best situation for Kirk Cousins, at least among those 5 teams.
Yeah, I would go. I think all of them. I'm trying to think of if any of them wouldn't get better. I think all of them would get better than their previous situations, except for the Vikings because they already had Kirk Cousins. So the Vikings get better because they would be replacing Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs with Kirk Cousins, but they're not going to get like 5 games better. I think there's a lot of people out there that, despite the 1-4 start, think, man, if Kirk hadn't gotten hurt, the Vikings were going to go win like 11 or 12 games. I don't know that they win the Falcons game with Kirk. I think Joshua Dobbs, shockingly, having not met any of his teammates, was like sort of uniquely positioned to do what they needed to do in that game. Mm-hmm. But I would say I still think the Falcons are number one. I mean, they won 7 games last year with a lame duck head coach
Arthur
that
Smith
inspired nobody. Yeah.
He didn't use any of those weapons correct.
And Desmond Ridder was the quarterback, which is what Arthur Smith would say. I need a better quarterback than Desmond Ridder. So I still think Falcons. I would probably put the Vikings number 2, getting the band back together. This is the thing about Kirk, and this is another question for us. If he leaves the Vikings for one of these other teams, and I'd probably put the Raiders like number 3 because they won 8 games. They've got some mojo going there right now with Antonio Pierce. They've got weapons. But if he leaves for any of these other teams, how would you best describe what that team is getting when they acquire Kirk Cousins? Like, what's the biggest thing we've learned about a Kirk Cousins-led team for the last 6 years? And I would describe it this way. You are getting one of the highest floor quarterbacks in the NFL. A guy that rarely pisses away games. A guy that rarely gets hurt up until the Achilles tear last year. And now maybe that changes because he's 36 years old. And you are going to be train wreck proof. And a couple of these organizations could use that. Like the Falcons have been a train wreck at times. The Raiders have been an embarrassment over the last 20 years.
Right now.
The Commanders, like
train wreck.
If you're an organization looking to train wreck proof yourself and guarantee that you don't go 4-13, Kirk Cousins is your guy. You're going to win 8, 9, or 10 games almost certainly if he stays healthy. But you're also getting a glass ceiling quarterback where, especially if he's going to make $40 or $45 million, you're probably not winning 13 or 14 games, except that one time with the Vikings. I get that there's outliers, and you're probably not going to the Super Bowl based on his history. So if you're a franchise looking for a higher floor, awesome, fire away. If you're a franchise looking to win a Super Bowl, the evidence just isn't there, but that's okay. He can be a step in the right direction for you.
He is the ultimate keeping up with the Joneses QB purchase because he's a professional. He's professional. He looks great on your lawn.
Oh, the neighbor's got some new landscaping. What?
You live in Edina, and next door they just bought a new Jag, and you're like, I'm going to get a nice car. And your wife's like, well, we can't afford a Jag. But so you get a nice car, but you know what? You paid too much.
You put a spoiler on your Camry.
And now the mortgage is due, and you're like, well, we really can't pay the whole mortgage too. And so you gotta slice this off to do that. He is the Kirk Cousins at the end of the day becomes the ultimate living above your means purchase.
You're leasing Kirk Cousins. You're not owning that car.
But he won't
You're
let
renting.
you.
You're renting that car. That's an affordable payment, hopefully.
But it's
not.
not.
That you're not committing
It's
to.
not affordable at all.
But you
whatsoever,
just hit
dude. You're house poor, man.
Thing. Mm-hmm. You just hit the key
thing. You can't go to a nice restaurant. Yeah.
Hey, look, as Phil has said forever, if Kirk is affordable, you would take him in a heartbeat. Like if Kirk Cousins came crawling back to TCO today. It's like, guys, I'm sorry. You know what? 25 mil. Let's go.
Awesome. Let's roll,
You'd be
baby.
like, dude, you are
In.
signed, sealed, and delivered.
100% in. 100% in. And that's where I, like, if I'm Kwesi, and I get that he's probably getting pressure from ownership, he's probably getting pressure from KOC. Hey, let's bring him back as a bridge, bring him back as a bridge. You say, yeah, I'd like him back as a bridge too, but he's literally trying to get 2 or 3 years guaranteed, and he's going to go test the market. If we don't hit that request before March 13th, he's going to go test the market, and now it's out of our control. I would just say right now, going into the combine, hey, next week, the entire NFL world's going to be in Indianapolis. We need a resolution by the end of the combine, by the end of February, basically, is what I would tell his camp. And I would say, we want you back, reasonable price, 1 year guarantee, options open for both of us after 2024. Do you want to come back in that scenario? You're going to be our bridge guy. He's going to say no.
I was going to say, yeah.
I would make him say no.
You know the
And then
answer.
I would shake his hand firmly, and I would wish him luck in Atlanta or Nevada or wherever he winds up. Like, I am not doing... Doogie keeps talking about, will they guarantee 2026? I'm not guaranteeing 2025 to a 36-year-old non-elite quarterback coming off an Achilles.
And let's be extremely clear here. I know it's not of immediate expiration, but the reporting that's being done on Jefferson's contract, to me, has moved him to a far greater concern if you're the Vikings than Kirk is. I know the answer on Kirk. Like, I'm much more concerned about how much if Justin Jefferson truly wants a guaranteed contract fully, we got problems here. Like, we potentially have problems. So I'm past the Kirk thing. My bandwidth is done. I've tried, and it's fine. It's
Okay.
absolutely fine.
So what if you have the because the Kirk conversation is more urgent than the Jefferson conversation, because, like, free agents, Jefferson's not a free agent.
It is to us, but I'm saying
think-
internally it shouldn't be.
Right, but in terms of timeline, like, you're going to
Yeah, but-
finalize your Kirk decision in the
Right.
next couple weeks.
Right.
And let's say you guys decide to part ways. Hey, we have to go get 2 or 3 years guaranteed. And you, the Vikings, are saying correctly, I think, yeah, we can't do that, man. We can't. We want you back, but we got to go year to year with you at this point. We got to have flexibility. And now you have to take that conversation to Jefferson and his representatives. And I do think if you just give Jefferson what he wants, which is a ton of guaranteed money and the highest paid non-quarterback, he'll sign regardless of what the quarterback situation is.
100%.
But if you're kind of lowballing him on that front already, and you go to him and his representatives and say, I know we haven't met your demands for a contract, and we just hugged it out with Kirk. It was amicable. It was great. You know, he hung on to the hug a little longer than I would have been comfortable with, but it's great. Like, he's going to go to Atlanta. He's going to have a good time. His wife's family is from there.
Yeah.
That impacts those discussions too. But it would be nice. I'm a little wary about paying any non-quarterback $35 million a year, but it would be nice if you're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, a J.J. McCarthy or a Jaden Daniels, to have a car to sit in that includes Justin Jefferson. And you can afford it more if you're not also paying $40 million for a quarterback. Right?
Yeah, but if indeed Jefferson is looking for potentially an unprecedented guarantee for his position, and you're like, no. And keep in mind too, the Vikings in 2018 impressed a lot of people with the Kirk contract, but I think internally the league hated it, right? Because it sets
new
a precedent.
precedent. Yeah.
So are you going to now set a precedent at a position? I don't think there's a bunch of fully guaranteed, unless I've missed reports left and right. I don't think there's a bunch of fully guaranteed contracts out there for positions beyond QB. And so are you going to do that as well? What I'm saying is this puts you in a position to at least have to make tough decisions, but you need to make them. And quite frankly, wouldn't you guys be a little bit surprised if the Kirk thing is not at least internally agreed to as it's probably done? Like, I don't see either side now, unless the Vikings completely collapse here and, like, you say, okay, we'll give you what you want, in which case I lose all respect for them. Don't you think the Kirk thing is largely decided?
See, that's a good question. I think that there's a lot of fans that listen to this and watch this and and hear you say that and think this is just fear mongering. This is just like clickbait fear mongering. He's going to come back. This is just a dead period. There's no deadline here, so it's going to happen. I agree with you. But I would have said that like 2 years ago too. I mean, I thought the new regime signaled, okay, this is a good chance for a reset. And to this point, they've just continued to go back to the same well. So until they actually break up, I'm still going to be on the fence about what they are thinking internally. Sorry, Dex.
I feel like the combine too is gonna the Cousins market is going to start those whisperers of what could you give us? Right? What could you give us? Arthur Smith stunk, so you have a new coach and your weapons are really good. So they'll gauge that market, but if they figure out that they're not getting the real top dollars that he would get on the open market in those internal discussions, I do think there's backpedaling back to the Vikings on the Cousins camp saying, okay, let's play ball back towards your guys' figures and your type of numbers because we're not actually hearing what we want. I think this next week at the Combine, we're going to figure out exactly where they're at. I think the Vikings have done their part, right? Like they're not going to exceed their part. I think that part is pretty much cemented in stone. But if the Cousins camp isn't hearing what they like at the Combine with those tampering talks or whatever the heck it is, that's when they come back to the Vikings and say, okay, let's play ball with you.
It's my experience that to your point, and it's a perfect point, but it's been my experience at the Combine, the quarterback market like this rarely gets suppressed. Yeah. Like I think you're going to hear figures that really surprise you because they're going to be higher. And that's where I think the Vikings can peacefully, I think when this is all said and done, Kwesi, the Wolves, and Kevin O'Connell, their heads can all hit the pillow very comfortably because I don't think that it's going to be a gnashing of the teeth. We might have screwed the pooch on this one. I think it's going to be a best of luck, but what the Falcons are doing, in our opinion, is crazy.
Yeah. Let's do a couple more things to wrap this show. Declan found a link here from ESPN.com's Matt Bowen, and he has a full list of the top 50 NFL free agents and where he thinks the best fits are for each of them. And so there's two prominent Vikings in the top 10, Daniil and Kirk, and then we'll see if there's any other in the top 50 that are going to the Vikings or coming in from the external part. So we'll get to that. And one of the Mount Rushmore mockers has spoken again today with an updated mock draft. So we got to get to the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft here after we shout out our friends over at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. So Federated's been a longtime partner of ours here at Score North, even going back to the 1500 ESPN days when Judd and I have been doing a show together for 10 years. And so Federated has supported us throughout the entire time. Face-to-face, eye-to-eye is one of the many things that makes Federated Insurance stand out in the insurance industry. Their corporate culture is grounded in equity, integrity, teamwork, and respect, and these four cornerstones create the foundation that supports all interactions and decision-making. You can find out how Federated can help elevate your business at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Also, our friends at Zero Res are here to deep clean your home. If you're just vacuuming and light dusting, you might want to call Zero Res. Get a little bit deeper into that carpet, deeper into those air ducts. If you call Zero Res today and ask for the Score North special, you can get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $119 and a free hallway as well. This month, take $75 off when you get your air ducts Zero Res clean. 952 Zero Res or ZeroResMinnesota.com. Say you want the Score North special. Spell it forward or backwards. It spells the same. Zero Res. And a reminder that we're changing here in the next couple weeks our merchandise platform. It'll still be at scorenorth.com/shop, but as we shift behind the scenes to a new platform, everything right now through the end of the month is 20% off the Before I Die swag, Victory Monday, Purple Daily, Flagrant Howls, logoed gear. You can find it all at scorenorth.com/shop. Use the promo code SALE at checkout. That's SALE at checkout for 20% off. Okay, boys. Declan found this article, ESPN.com. I'll just rip the Band-Aid off for you Cousins Crusaders. He's going to Atlanta, according to this Best Fit article. The Vikings should be in the mix to re-sign Cousins, but I think he fits really well with Atlanta under new offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, who worked under Sean McVay in Los Angeles. So he'd basically be going to the next Kevin O'Connell.
Yep.
It works well for Cousins in both the play action and drop back passing game. And it goes on to explain how great he was before tearing the Achilles. He'd be an upgrade under center for an Atlanta offense that has plenty of young offensive talent. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. And then the 8th ranked free agent is Danielle Hunter. Best fit for him, ESPN.com says the Rams. They've got money to spend in free agency. Imagine Aaron Donald on the inside and Danielle Hunter off the edge, dude.
So the Rams might go full Rams?
I guess full Rams would be
I'd like to apologize
an ironic twist on the way this outcome plays out. So it says adding Hunter would give the Rams a productive veteran force opposite Byron Young, who had 8 sacks as a rookie, and with Aaron Donald on the interior.
Oh, my God.
Before I get to they have one of the top 50 later on here going to the Vikings. If the next month plays out like this and Kirk goes to Atlanta and Danielle goes to the Rams, what do you do now? Like, what is your roadmap going forward now if you're the Vikings?
Just become a Bears fan. Oh, if you're the Vikings, I mean, your roadmap is you're going to have you're going to be have or be headed towards a ton of salary cap space. Like, I think if you can, you know what this comes down to, flat out, if these things take place, which by the way they very well might. Like it's certainly not absurd to think that Cousins and Hunter, when the new league year starts, will sign contracts elsewhere. The reality is you're going to have to draft really, really well. And if you don't, nothing else matters.
Yeah. And that's been the case. Like, that's a huge reason why they're kind of in
But
their
I'm just saying, you're going to have
situation.
cap space, but the cap space pays off when you start to fill in with draft picks who are contributing, right? Like, that's the key thing. And so at the end of the day, unless you fortify your depth and start to get some absolutely key pieces through the draft, you're either going to go into a cycle of probably being bad, which the Vikings rarely do, and or a cycle of trying to tread water. But this is where you also have a chance to draft a quarterback. This is also a chance where you might have a bad 2024 and have a bunch of high picks again. So, like, it's not a death sentence, and it's not a rebuild of like, oh, it's going to take a long time. I think it's a really good opportunity to hit a reset button, which I firmly believe this franchise needs to do.
If it plays out this way and you don't get Hunter back, you don't get Cousins back.
Mm-hmm.
What does JJ think? You know, this is where the JJ conversation, because this, by the way, this is a likely scenario.
Where's my money, man? Where's my money, man? It's like Brian the dog on Family Guy.
Where's my money? Where's my money?
Where's my money, man? Where's my money?
But Daniil's going to be seeking the biggest payday because he hasn't gotten that in his career, right? So it's going to be more about payday probably for him. Now, if it's close, maybe he comes back to the Vikings, but it's very likely a team with more money. Bears, if the Rams want to go in this direction, right? Like, there's other teams in the mix too.
Yep.
Jaguars are going to be on the hunt for, no pun intended, a last piece to their Super Bowl contendership.
Yep.
So this is a scenario that's not implausible. Does JJ then say, I mean, I want the bag, but if you're the Vikings, do you then just consider trading him? Like,
you just hit on the key thing though, and people aren't discussing this. Justin Jefferson. Now, throughout it, if he stays here and this team struggles and scuffles, could he eventually go full Stephon Diggs? Absolutely he could. He's a receiver. Who knows? But right now, as we talk about this, if the Vikings are willing to give Jefferson what he wants in guarantees, and that's an if they are, I think, Phil, what you just broached is far more a Vikings question than a Jefferson question.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Jefferson is going to say, well, you're going to give me 3 full guaranteed years. But I'm really concerned about the state of the franchise right now. So trade me. So I think the question is what you said, which is, if you're the Vikings, do you say, is this a smart investment right now? Or are we hitting a reset hard enough that it actually makes sense to at least explore if somebody will give us the bag for Justin? Yeah. And I know fans hate that. They don't want to hear that. But I think you hit it perfectly from a Vikings angle, far more than a Jefferson one.
So again, this will all play out in the next month, one way or the other. So it's really interesting. Now, to make up for the loss of Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter, ESPN.com does have the Vikings signing the 38th ranked free agent on their list.
Oh, yeah.
Cornerback Sean Murphy Bunting, who was most recently with the Tennessee Titans. So he's 26 and a half years old. He was the 90th ranked cornerback out of 127 last year, according to Pro Football Focus. 26th out of 118 the year before in 2022. I think he's a former second day draft pick, second or third round.
He was a second round pick.
Okay. But PFF has the contract at 1 year, $4 million. So you'd just be bringing in a veteran, fairly experienced cornerback with maybe some more upside,
Sort
6
of a
feet
jag.
tall.
Right.
Yeah. Just a guy that's going to come in, play 800 snaps for you.
Yep.
So, yeah, just interesting times ahead here for.
I'm not down about this though. No, if this is done right, I think that the scenario that we just painted could be refreshing.
It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. It doesn't have to be 10 years of rebuilding like the Lions. I think you just have to sort of trust that there's enough here, right? You've got offensive tackles. You've got high draft picks, especially if you trade Justin Jefferson.
And Kirk is comfortable, but at the end of the day, that incarnation of things didn't work. Kirk is comfortable. We all know Kirk, extremely likable on Netflix, but it did I think people, and I think this is a very Midwest Minnesota thing, and it includes me too. We like comfort, and Kirk is comfortable, and so is bringing Kirk back in the mind of some. You know what? I like Kirk. Kirk plays pretty well. Yeah, but it didn't work. It just didn't.
Yep, and maybe it'll work for somebody else. I don't know. Maybe it'll work for the
go try it.
Falcons here. All right, let's do a mock.
I want a mock.
Daniel Jeremiah 2.0.
Great.
He's on the Mount Rushmore of mockers for sure.
There's one interesting thing here, I thought. Go ahead.
NFL.com. Yeah, I have not seen this. I'm going through this with the audience here. So Caleb Williams, number 1 to the Bears. Drake May, number 2 to the Commanders. Marvin Harrison Jr., number 3 to the Patriots. That, to me, is the fly in the ointment of the Jefferson trading Jefferson to New England thing. Because they could just say, well, why wouldn't we just take the cheaper, younger Marvin Harrison Jr.? So Cardinals take Malik Neighbors, LSU wide receiver. Chargers take Joe Alt, Notre Dame offensive tackle. Giants then take the sliding Jaden Daniels at 6.
Interesting.
Titans take Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle, Penn State, 7. Falcons take J.J. McCarthy, 8.
Yep.
Bears take Roma Dunze, Washington wide receiver, 9th. Jets take Talise Fuaga, Oregon State offensive tackle, 10th. And that leaves the Vikings with the 11th overall pick. Do we take the 5th quarterback off the board or go in a different position? They go Dallas Turner, Alabama edge rusher. And Daniel Jeremiah writes, I wouldn't rule out the Vikings drafting a quarterback early, but I'm not sure they'll have the ammunition to trade up for one. With Danielle Hunter heading for free agency, they address the need for pass rush help.
I want a mock.
So I tend to agree with you that there's definitely the emergence or the presence of 2 top 10 wide receivers in this draft do put a fly in the ointment of a Jefferson trade. But what Daniel Jeremiah suggests here also creates a really intriguing opportunity that we've discussed briefly before, which is this: the Chargers at 5 if Jaden Daniels is falling.
Mm-hmm. Kwesi talks to his buddy Jim, says, hey, Jim, do you have your GM's number?
Yep.
Do
you get up to 5?
Yep, that's a swing spot, right? That because I think the Cardinals are going to want to stick, but I don't know. The Cardinals could trade back and take another wide receiver.
True.
So 4 and 5 are kind of
creates an interesting scenario, though, if things don't go chalk with those 3 quarterbacks.
Yep, it is. And speaking of the draft, don't forget, mark your calendars. Thursday, April 25th. We want to see as many of you as possible at the Fillmore in Minneapolis. More details to come on how you can get your tickets, which are free. We will have a VIP level as well, so we're going to announce all of this in the next couple weeks. But it's the 3rd annual Purple Daily Draft Party at the Fillmore in Minneapolis, Thursday, April 25th.
We have never performed before in a place with chandeliers.
Yep.
Nah,
Never
I think you're
done it.
right.
Nope.
Never
Actually,
been
you
a
know
place
what?
with chandeliers.
My dad's old condo had a chandelier in it, and I did some shows from there. So I do
love
have some
chandeliers.
experience.
Oh, do you? I love chandeliers. Just reeks of class.
It is, which is going to be uncomfortable for us because we are
Yeah.
Oh,
not
most
very
definitely.
classy.
No, not at all.
But I mean, those are
all.
gorgeous chandeliers at the Fillmore.
Yes, we are excited to see you guys and to hang out underneath chandeliers on April 25th.
Well,
for
I'll
the
be
first
underneath
night of the
chandeliers.
draft. We'll see you guys tomorrow on Purple Daily.
Viewers,